Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Power Hour session. I'm so excited. My name is Angela Fullwood, and I am the Supervisor for Family and Community Engagement. And here we have our partners with us, Suncoast Credit Union. We have one of our fourth sessions, and today's session is going to be about your car buying decisions. Drive away happy. With us, we have a process manager, Danielle Farnson. She's going to tell you all about how Suncoast Credit Union can be a support to you in this new season as you're going to be getting your tax return soon. So with that in mind, take it away, Danielle.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, as she said, I'm Danielle Farnsworth. I'm the indirect processing manager here at Suncoast Credit Union, and give you a little insight. I have a team of 20, and we fund indirect loans, vehicle loans all day, every day, and they are loans that are coming to us straight from dealerships. So if you've ever gone to a dealership before, and they said, oh, we have a relationship with a bank, a credit union, and we can just submit your application to them. That's what we're doing on the other end. We're accepting those applications, we're approving them, decisioning them, and then we book the loan. So that's what we do all the time. And in a previous life, I was a dealer rep, is what they call them, but basically I was the liaison between the credit union and the dealerships. So I would keep those relationships going, and sort of be the education piece for the dealership on how Suncoast buys loans. So I have a lot of background with dealing with dealerships directly, and I've purchased a lot of cars over the years. So I definitely have a lot to say on this particular matter. So with that, I'm just going to jump right in. So I like the title of this, by the way, Drive Away Happy, because this is exactly what you should be doing when you leave that dealership, however you've purchased your vehicle. It should be fun. It should be an exciting thing that you get to do. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times there's instead anxiety that goes into this decision. So I'm hoping by the end of this session, you'll feel a little more confident when you go out there and you're buying that next vehicle. So. Uh, Car buying decisions, man, there are so many things that come into play with making that decision on how you're going to buy that next vehicle. You can maybe you're doing it in cash if you're brand new to your first vehicle, or maybe you're getting your lending ahead of time with Suncoast, or like I said, maybe you're going straight to the dealership. There's lots of different options. So welcome. So there's a lot of reasons to get a new car. Sometimes when we've been driving the same vehicle for a very long time, you're getting that vehicle repaired. It feels like constantly, and there sometimes it's worth it to get the vehicle repaired, right, and to keep it going a little bit longer. But if you're constantly feel like you are just dumping money into a vehicle, maybe it's time to buy that new vehicle. Maybe the constant feeding into that vehicle is no longer worth it to you. And so sometimes, believe it or not, it is better to go ahead and purchase a new vehicle or a gently used vehicle. So if it doesn't feel like it's reliable, you just keep dumping money into it. Yeah, I get that. It's probably time to get the next vehicle for you and your family. Maybe your family's growing. That happened to me multiple times over the last 20 years. No longer that little car ain't going to work any longer, right? We got to get a van now. We went through that phase of life with the van, and now our kids are older, and now we've got something a bit more fun that we can drive around. But depending on where you're at in life, really, it really tells the story of what kind of vehicle is going to be right for you. So if you have any particular interest on why you might be purchasing your next vehicle, throw it in the chat. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it. So but there are lots of different reasons to get that next vehicle. And then we have to take into consideration what car you should be getting. I would definitely say, though, a lot of times people will buy vehicles, it seems like, without putting a lot of thought into it at all. They're just sitting at home on a Saturday, and they just get an itch to go buy that next car, and next thing you know, they're at a dealership. And I would definitely recommend, this purchase, whether you're doing it in cash, whether you're getting financing from the dealership or the bank or your credit union, hopefully, it's not something to just do on a whim. You really want to go to these places prepared, right? Because the dealership, man, they are ready to see you walk in the door, and they're going to want to get you in something before you leave that day. So, I would say definitely weigh your options. There's a lot to consider here. What are your needs? I've already said, maybe you need a big truck because you're in construction, or maybe you drive a long distance to work, and goodness knows, with the price of gas right now, a lot of people are looking at options of smaller vehicles. We call them eco loans at Suncoast, but vehicles that you can, electric cars, hybrids. And as a plug, I'll let you know too, at Suncoast, when it comes to our interest rates, we actually give a discount to those that are conscious like that and buy an eco friendly vehicle, a hybrid, an electronic vehicle. So if you're into like energy saving, there's that's pretty big these days, and there are some discounts even on the rate because of that. Of course, we want to consider, like I said, this is an exciting thing. So yeah, needs are important, but what about your wants? Most of us want at least a few extras that we don't really need. You don't have to buy the cheapest, most basic car, but remember that you may not be able to afford everything that you want, those higher trims. I always I always remember my grandfather, years ago, he bought a vehicle, a Cadillac, in cash. He got to a point in his life, he's like, I want a Cadillac. And he bought a Cadillac with all the bells and whistles on it. And then after a few years, all of a sudden he had this completely change of heart, and he wanted the most basic vehicle ever because he was tired of everything breaking on it. And you have to pay for all those bells and whistles once they break, right? So he went out and bought the most basic. It was so basic that it was an old crank for the window. I didn't even know they made cars like that anymore, but he found one, and he bragged to all of us that it was so basic. It was nothing was ever going to break on it. So, something else to be looking out for is safety and reliability of the car. I can tell you that when my teenager got his first car and we were helping him make that decision, one of the first things that popped into my head is, this is my son. I want him to be in something that's safe. He's not the most experienced driver. So, I picked a Toyota Corolla because I knew that vehicle was going to have all these bells and whistles, but it was also, more importantly, going to have the lane, keep him in the lane, right? If he veers off to one side, it's going to bump him right back. So, depending on where you're at in life, and for me, it was about keeping my teenager safe. That's really important to us right now. Also, safety and reliability is probably going to help with the price of that insurance. All those extra little things that keep the vehicle, makes it a little bit safer. Usually you get a bit of a benefit to it when it comes to your car insurance. And then, the most important thing though, before you go out and start looking at vehicles and go to the dealership, is figuring out your budget. That's huge. And a lot of times it's going to come down to, we call it payment conscious people. What is the payment that you can afford? And I will tell you, and if any of you are interested, I can even add it to the chat, but Suncoast has, calculators that will help you. If you, are trying to stay within a particular payment, you're like, I know I can afford $350 a month. How much car can I have? Well, I'll add it to the chat if you'd like, but there is on our website all these wonderful calculators that you can use to help you figure out, where that's going to put you when you go out into the dealership. And especially too, if budget is a big deal to you, I would highly recommend you get your financing ahead of time before you go to the dealership. We call that a pre-approval at Suncoast, or we call it a draft, getting your draft. You'll hear that kind of language if you ever go to one of our branches or call our contact center. You could always say, I'd like to get pre-approved. It's definitely, after all these years of car buying, I can tell you, and I even fund indirect loans, I don't ever go into a dealership without a pre-approved draft. So like I was saying a second ago, how much can you afford? And this is a big one. The best way to avoid getting a car loan that you cannot afford to pay is to examine your budget and see how much money you have available for car expenses. I think sometimes people really forget. They just think of that car payment every month. Like, okay, I can afford $350 a month, but there's more to owning a car than just that car payment. Depending on the vehicle that you choose is gonna really determine how much your car insurance is each month. I can't tell you how many times I see folks, they want to get a BMW, they want to get a Mercedes, they want to get a really fancy, like a German car, and they'll realize, yeah, I can afford that payment. Man, I tell you what, coming from someone that's owned a German car, when that thing starts needing some help, even an oil change, just regular maintenance, the price of that kind of maintenance or fixing things when things really break down really goes up. So when you're determining how much you can afford, think more than just the payment. Think about how much the insurance is going to be on the vehicle. And I can tell you too, if you're really interested in a particular vehicle, you can call your insurance company ahead of time, give them the details on the vehicle that you're interested in, and they can give you a quote ahead of time just to find out, can I even afford the car insurance on this? Something else, like I said, you want to kind of look at what the price of the maintenance is going to be on this vehicle. Can you afford the maintenance? Even the registration, which I can tell you surprised me. A couple years ago, I purchased a really big truck. I got this kick. I was like, I'm going to go get me the biggest truck I can find. I don't know what popped into my head for a moment. But when I even went to register the vehicle, if it's over a certain weight, which this one was, your registration is even more expensive than just a regular registration, at least here in the state of Florida. So all things to take into consideration before you go into that dealership. You might have a down payment that you're saving for. I'll talk about it a bit more later, but when it comes to borrowing, if you've never borrowed before for an auto loan, sometimes you have to put a bit of a down payment to get that auto loan. A lot of times you don't, especially at the credit union, depending on your credit worthiness, we call it. You may not have to put any cash down when you go to make that purchase. But if you're brand new to it, you might have to. So something to think about, to have a little cash down ready to go in case it's required. I just want to make sure I didn't skip something. No, I didn't skip something. So now what are we going to do? We're going to buy new, we're going to buy used. So definitely some advantages to buying new. Obviously, you're the first owner, right? So hopefully it should be working for quite some time. So, hopefully you don't have it breaking down anytime soon. So reliability, yes, it should be working in its peak performance for quite some time. Oftentimes these new vehicles, they also do come with a manufacturer's warranty, so that's great. And then of course you have that opportunity to customize your vehicle. What trim do you want? What color do you want? All of that is fantastic. But of course it comes with a price, right? They tend to be the most expensive option is to buy brand new. It's going to definitely require full insurance coverage, especially if you have a loan against that vehicle. Of course, you got to register the vehicle, so tax tag and title. These are all things that you're going to have to think about when you go to the dealership. And as they say, as soon as you drive off that off that lot, excuse me, it's going to be depreciating in value. Not, I hear that and I say, yes, that's definitely true, but I wouldn't necessarily use that as a reason to not buy brand new. Buying a brand new car is fun. Let's be honest. It's got that great smell. You know that you're the only owner. And depending on the kind of car buyer you are, I'll use my dad as an example. My dad purchased a Toyota 4Runner in the year 2000, brand new, gorgeous vehicle. And here it is 2023 and he's still driving it. It's got like 500,000 miles on it, so if you're someone that wants to maybe buy brand new, I mean, if you take care of that vehicle, my dad always says cars are meant to be driven, Danielle. So, you can drive that thing apparently for over 20 years. And depending on the vehicle that you choose, shoot, it might be a great purchase and will take you for many, many, many years. My dad has definitely gotten, all the benefits out of purchasing that vehicle brand new. Of course, there are definitely some advantages to buying used. This is sort of my area. I usually do buy my vehicles gently used, I always say, maybe 1 to 2 years old. And the reason is because my opinion is like, let somebody else take the hit on that depreciation. When I purchase my vehicles, a lot of times what I'm looking for is I'll ask for the value, which don't be afraid to ask for the value when you're at a dealership. What's the NADA on this? I want to see it. And that way, depending on what they're selling the vehicle for and how much the vehicle is worth right now, according to the NADA, you might be in a better situation. I don't want to be upside down in that vehicle purchase. You want to purchase that vehicle, if possible, as close to the value as you can. It's just going to put you in a much better position if, let's say, down the line, you want to trade it in for something else. Historically speaking, people hang on to their vehicles for 36 months. So obviously people like to trade vehicles in. I mean, we book a lot of loans at the credit union for vehicles every single day. So, not everybody is obviously my dad hanging on to the same vehicle for 23 years. And I'm really grateful for that, because if everyone was like him, we would not have a job. So, buying used, I would definitely say, as far as from a total value standpoint, is one of the it's a great option, because typically, yeah, maybe it's used, maybe you're not the very first owner, but it's probably gently used. And it you may be able to save quite a bit of cash doing it that way. If you're looking to save some money, I think buying gently used could very well be one of the better options. Of course, there are disadvantages, like with anything. You may not necessarily know the history of the vehicle. I would definitely say that if you are buying a used vehicle, I would ask for the Carfax. I don't mean to sound like that little fox on the commercial, but ask for the Carfax. And really, if the dealership can't provide it to you, I don't know. I think I'd really be considering whether or not I wanted to move forward. I'd really want to know that this vehicle was safe for me and my family, because a lot of times, you may not be able to tell just by looking at this vehicle on the lot if it was in an auto accident. A lot of times there is no warranty, or it's very limited, or it might even expire. I would definitely say, if you buy used, something to look for that is fantastic would be if they have it advertised saying, you'll hear it say either CPO or certified pre-owned. So if you find a vehicle at a dealership lot and the dealer is telling you that it's certified pre-owned, that is fantastic. What that's telling you is that this dealership is certifying that they have examined this vehicle from top to bottom, and they are putting their stamp of approval on it, that it is basically like buying this vehicle new, that the integrity of the vehicle is top notch. And if it's certified pre-owned, it comes with a warranty. So if you are buying used, don't be afraid to buy used, number one. And number two, try to find one that's certified pre-owned. Typically, just so you know, if you are buying a vehicle that's certified pre-owned, you're going to have to buy the vehicle from a dealership that is of its make. So what do I mean when I say that? Like a Toyota Corolla, I'm going to use that as an example. If it says it's certified pre-owned, it would have to be sold at a Toyota dealership for them to be able to certify pre-own it. So if you're at a Honda dealership, you're not going to find a Toyota that's certified pre-owned, if that makes sense. If you have any questions about what I'm saying, go ahead and throw it into the chat. Higher maintenance costs, yes and no. I mean, maintenance is just part of owning a vehicle, right? I mean, you're going to have maintenance whether you buy a brand new vehicle or a used vehicle. Routine maintenance is just the name of the game. You got to do your maintenance with these vehicles to keep them running. And yes, it's possible with buying used that it may need replacement sooner. So there are a variety of ways that you can buy a used vehicle. You could, of course, go to a dealership. Here at Suncoast, we have over 300 dealer partners that can actually submit an application for you directly to the credit union, and my team books the loan. So they have relationships directly with Suncoast right here in the area. Of course, you can go through a private seller. That tends to be a bit cheaper to go that route, but it's also a bit scarier because you are trusting the person that's selling the vehicle. The number one, they're telling you exactly the truth about that vehicle. And I do like the notes here that says if you do go through a private seller to run a vehicle history report or a Carfax report on the VIN specific, so you know exactly what this vehicle has been through. I would also say that if you were to go through a private seller, not a bad idea to ask the seller if they'd be willing to allow you to take the vehicle to a mechanic to review the vehicle before you make that purchase. So yes, it would be, it tends to be cheaper to go through a private seller, but it's definitely, if you're looking for like a convenience factor, you're going to be putting in some work with that private seller. And then also too, you have to come up with the way that you're going to transact that business. I remember working at the branch for years, and we used to do what's called individual purchases. That's exactly what this is. And a lot of times you'd have to go and like go down to the DMV with the seller and take care of all of that tax tag and title work. And then before you finished the transaction at the branch. So sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. You of course can go to a used car lot. I would be not to say that you shouldn't do it, but I would just say be a little bit more leery about going to these dealerships that you see on the side of the road that we call them the buy here, pay here. A lot of times, those vehicles, again, you might get a gem, or you may get in some serious trouble. So if you are going to go through a used car lot, a private seller, I would definitely recommend getting the Carfax report and then possibly getting the vehicle inspected by an independent mechanic. You just want to cover yourself, because once monies have been exchanged hands, that's it. It's yours, So, and I have heard you can also purchase those vehicles from a rental car company or through the auction. But again, a lot of the times, keep in mind when you go to a dealership, what are you also getting with that? Convenience is what you're getting. You're getting a little bit of convenience. You're also getting the dealership, especially with all these big franchise dealerships. They've got a name that they have and a reputation to uphold, right? So if you have an issue with the vehicle, you've got a huge dealership, there it is, it exists. There's general managers, general sales managers that will help you if you're dissatisfied with the purchase, or you're having problems with the vehicle. They've got a name to hold up. So they're more likely to help you out than if you went through a private seller or even one of these buy here, pay here's. Of course, you also have the opportunity to go through a leasing, which they have at these dealerships, a leasing company. With leasing advantages, it does enable you to afford a nicer vehicle for less money each month than owning one. But the upfront costs they tend to be a bit lower. As an added bonus, you don't have to worry about selling it later on. But with leasing, I got to tell you, I've seen some things. I've seen some things, especially in this world that I live in with vehicle loans. And you can do a lease buyout. You can, after you've leased the vehicle for a while, you can buy it out. But there's a lot of fees that are associated with leases. You know, I've heard this old saying that some folks, if they need to drive a newer vehicle more often, a lease is not a terrible idea. I've heard like realtors, sometimes if you're like driving people around places and you want to sort of show off, depending on what you do for a living, a lease is not a terrible idea. However, some things to keep in mind is, you know, you have to be very careful about the amount of miles you put on those vehicles, because they will fee you if you've put too many miles on the vehicle. Personally, I'd be terrified if anything happened to that vehicle, because again, I don't own the vehicle, right? So if you turn in the lease and it's got some dents or some scratches on it or something's happened to it, you're paying for all of that. There's a lot of fees involved if you want to turn it in early, which happens quite a bit. You don't own it. That's the other thing. You don't own the vehicle. It's not an asset to you. You're just sort of renting the vehicle for a while. So, you know, for some folks, I can definitely see why they might like the idea. It seems very glamorous to lease a vehicle. It does. And these dealers, they're very good at advertising. You know, you can lease such and such for this amount each month. Yeah, but you get what you pay for. And there is definitely, I would just ask a lot of questions when it comes to leasing a vehicle. And don't be afraid to ask these dealers questions. You know, they look very powerful in those suits, you know, but I would not be afraid to just throw out all your questions to them. And if it feels off, walk. You have all the power. So let's talk about credit score for a few minutes here. So if you're planning to get a loan to purchase a car, having a good credit score is going to be essential. You know, not only does it have a major impact on the interest rate that you get, but if your score is too low, you may not be able to get any financing at all. You know, right now we're in a rising rate environment. So I can tell you, for instance, the credit union's lowest interest rate right now is over 6%. And just 12 months ago, it was, I want to say like two point something. So even tier one credit right now is the interest rates getting up there because of just the environment. So having the lowest credits or the highest credit score, excuse me, that you can have is really going to help you out when it goes to getting that loan. FICO scores, that credit score, it can range anywhere from 300 to 850. And I have seen both. So, you know, 850 is like your perfect credit score. I will also tell you as an aside, there's a lot of talk. I remember working at the branch, there's a lot of talk. People would come into the branch and they would say, well, Credit Karma says my score is such and such. Be very leery about websites like that. I'm not entirely sure where a place like Credit Karma is getting their information from, but I can tell you that it's inaccurate most of the time. The three major credit bureaus are going to be Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Suncoast uses Experian. And you, as a consumer, you have the right to review your own credit report yourself once a year. You can pull your own report. So I would recommend, if you are, you know, going to be car buying in the next few months, and you've got your tax return coming in, you know, you're getting your down payment, and you want to just go, you know, you want to know ahead of time and have that confidence, like, I'm going to get approved. Go ahead to these websites, Experian and Equifax. You can go directly to their websites, and you can pull your own credit report. I think if you pay a few dollars, they'll give you the score itself. But the report is going to be the most important factor, because it's going to tell you how many trades you have listed and what your credit history is like, or if there's anything on there that's, you know, that's derogatory that you might want to address. The credit score itself, though, you know, your credit report doesn't necessarily determine yes or no if you're getting a loan, but the credit score always determines what the interest rate is going to be. That's why the higher the credit score, the better your interest rate will be when you're borrowing money. So to give you an idea of some scoring factors, what contributes to that credit score, there's a lot of different items here. You got your types of credit used. So what does that mean? So do you have if I pull a credit report right now, does this person have a vehicle loan? Have they had vehicle loans? Have they had credit cards, a mortgage, signature loans? You know, when I'm reviewing a credit report, a lot of times, especially in this world of vehicle loans, I'm looking to see, has this person had a vehicle loan in the past? And the next thing I'm looking for is this big blue area, their payment history. So this is going to tell me, all right, so they've had a vehicle loan. How long have they had a vehicle loan for? People think that the more items that they have on their credit report, the better their score is going to be. The fact is, one of the big things that we're looking for when we are reviewing a credit report is how long have they had this trade open. We call them trades on a credit report. So if, as an example, you've had a vehicle loan, okay, well, you've had it for 2 months and you're already trading it in. That doesn't look, that's not a very long amount of time to determine whether or not you would have continued to make this payment. Now, if I look at a credit report and I see someone has made consistent payments, nothing delinquent, nothing late, for 4, 5 years. All right, now we're talking. Okay, so they have had this loan for 5 years. They've paid it well. I don't see any late pays. Or maybe I do see a late pay, but it looks like it was a couple of years ago and they've made a full recovery of it. I might still approve this loan. We also look for amounts owed. So what does that mean? So, all right, so we've got credit cards. I'm also looking at your credit cards on your credit report. You know, do you have a credit card and you've got a line of credit of $5,000. So that means that you could put up to $5,000 on this credit card. Well, I can tell you that creditors do not typically like to see credit cards or lines of credit that are at capacity. So what I mean is, if you have a $5,000 line of credit, like a credit card, and you've put $4,900 on that credit line, that does not look great. First of all, it actually affects your credit score. It makes it drop. And two, it looks like you are maxing it out. So my suggestion, if you do have credit cards, is that you don't even necessarily have to have anything on them, but if you use them, try to either pay it off every month. That way you're not paying interest on that balance, by the way. Or if you do keep a balance on that credit card, it's nowhere near the max that you can have on that, because that is usually looked at in not a great way from a creditor's standpoint. We also look to see new credit. So are you taking out a lot of lines of credit right now? Are you opening a lot of accounts at once? If you have several accounts that have been opened recently, it kind of throws up some red flags to a creditor that perhaps this person is anticipating maybe not being able to pay these items in a few months. Like, why do they need all of these new lines of credit right now? So, or they're anticipating bankruptcy as possible. So credit is a wonderful tool. If it's used properly, it can really help you excel in life. I would just say one of the best things to look for with credit is to not abuse it, to keep those, that credit history, having a nice long history. For instance, if you have a credit card, don't close those credit cards, just leave that credit card open. The longer the amount of years you've got for that, like that line of credit open, the better your credit is going to look long term. And then the biggest thing, like I said, payment history. It's as easy as just making your payments on time, month over month. There's no secret sauce for credit. It's just, when credit has been given to you, paying it back on time, and your credit score will do exactly what it's supposed to do, which is just to go up, 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 and creditors will want to easily lend out to you when they know that you're going to pay them back. Any questions about credit and credit scoring, credit history?
So far, we have no questions.
All right, cool. So what do you do if your score is low after this? You're like, you go and pull those credit reports and you're like, well, I really need to buy a vehicle. My vehicle is, not working up to par anymore. I got to get to my job. And I'm worried that maybe the lender is not going to approve me. Well, you can get a cosigner. It's possible, we do that all the time. So I would say, like, we've all been there too. Even if it's not so much you have bad credit, it's like maybe you have no credit, right? Everybody has to start somewhere. So there's nothing. I did this for my own son when it was time for him to get his first car loan. I knew that no creditor was going to give him a loan. He had no credit history. They have nothing to go off of from him. So, sometimes you got to get that strong cosigner or strong co-borrower to help support your application. Someone that's going to go out there and say, yes, this person is going to pay you back. I'm willing to put my name on it. And that's what a cosigner is there to do, is to help strengthen the application. And if they have a high credit score, they might even be able to improve your interest rate that you get to help you out. And once they help you get that car loan, guess what? Now you have the opportunity to work on your own credit, getting it better, because you have an opportunity to make your payments on time, moving forward. Maybe in the meantime, you pay off some of the collection items that you see on your credit report. If you were to pull it through Experian or Equifax, you can kind of like look and see, all right, I've got these items I want to take care of. If you've got credit cards that maybe they are getting towards that max limit, all right, take little bites of that elephant. Like, don't let it overwhelm you. Don't close those credit cards, but whatever that minimum payment is that is required each month, just bump it up a little bit. Make that minimum payment and then see what else you can throw on there. And little by little, you will see those accounts go down, just little bites of that elephant. And definitely, like I said, keep those old accounts. Don't close credit. That's a big misconception, I think. I've heard a lot of folks say, I'm just going to close this credit card down. Well, no, don't close the credit card down. Maybe chop up the card if you can't trust yourself to have it in your wallet anymore, but don't close it, because as soon as you close a credit card or a line of credit, once that account is, that time of making those payments is done, you're actually going to see your credit score decrease. So I would definitely recommend keeping those credit cards open if you're able to.
We have a question here in the Q&A.
Great.
It says, I have a 16-year-old son that wants to buy a car. How do I help him build his credit?
Oh, I have so much to say about this. Yes. Okay. So 16-year-old son, let me give you a few little bits and pieces here about this. So, okay. First of all, he can't enter a contract until he's age 18. So you couldn't open a credit card per se with him just yet until he turns 18. So if he turns 18 and you want to help him get like a student credit card, something like that, you can do that at that time and apply with him jointly. And that way he will more than likely get approved because you've got credit history where he does not. Now, something that I've seen a lot of folks do is they will add their minor child, which this is something you can do. You can add your minor child to a credit card that you have right now open as an authorized signer. So what that means is that authorized, and you can do that with anyone, by the way. An authorized signer is, whomever you want to. My credit card at Suncoast, I could say, I'm going to add Miss Angela as an authorized signer because I just want her to be able to use the credit card to her heart's delight, but she doesn't have any obligation to pay making the payment or the debt. So what a lot of folks do is they will add their minor child as an authorized signer to one of their credit cards, and that establishes for their minor a credit score. Now, I have some mixed feelings about it, and this is the reason why. Because if you do that, first of all, it's great for the child as far as giving them a credit score, but it's not really establishing true credit yet. Because any creditor, when they do go to apply for a loan, once they turn age 18 or whatever, they're going to be able to, first of all, see they're an authorized signer on this credit card. So they know that the credit score they have, although it's a real credit score, that history is not really theirs. It belongs to someone else. And they know that this person's not obligated to the debt. So there's really no way to determine that this person is truly going to repay a loan. The other thing that I've seen is that if you do something like that where you add your child as an authorized signer to your credit card, a lot of times what ends up happening is when that child becomes an adult and they go to apply for credit on their own, their social security number gets flagged every time saying basically applicant's credit was established prior to age 18, which is fine, but it makes the applicant have to basically explain themselves every single time they go to apply. It sort of flags the credit application, if you will, rather than auto decisioning it. So it's a thing. You can do it if you want your child to have like a credit score. But what I did, and I'm not saying anyone has to do this, but this is what I did with my own son, just because of what I see, right? Because I do this every day, is I knew that my son needed an auto loan when he was 18. He had a job. He had had a job for a couple of years. I was really tired of driving him to Publix every day and picking him up at midnight, right? You parents know what that feels. It's like, I'm so tired of picking up my child from places. So I'm like, you're going to get a car. And I don't have a car that I can just pay for in cash. So I told him, I says, you have enough income every month. I can see that where you can afford a little car payment. So I applied with him at the credit union as a co-applicant. We applied for the loan jointly, and we got our pre-approved draft. And then we went to, I don't know where you guys are located, but CU Auto Branch off of Hillsborough Avenue. It's a great little dealership, and we went and purchased the vehicle there. And now, yes, he got the loan because mom had credit that was satisfactory that could help him get the loan, but he's the one making the payments every month. So now he has a credit score and he's building credit organically, right? Because he's making those payments rather than a false credit score that has been created because I just added him as an authorized signer. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any follow-up questions, please drop them in, because obviously with teenagers, I have teenagers, and I totally get it. I do. We want to help our kids. We want to put them on the right track in life, and teaching our kids the importance of credit and how to take care of it is just, it's very impactful for them to be, very self-sufficient adults one of these days. So with the car loans, with financing terms, boy, let me tell you, before you sign loan documents, and I really mean this when it comes to especially when you're at the dealership, you guys. So there's a variety of ways we've said before that you can buy a car. So you could go directly to the dealership, which is my world, right? You go to the dealership, you find a vehicle that you want to purchase, and the dealer says, great, we can get you financing with Suncoast. We can submit your application to Suncoast. You don't even have to go there to get your pre-approval, which is great. It's very convenient. But something that I have found in my world is the dealers, and I don't want to harp on the dealers like they're all shady or anything. They're not, but they're definitely not going to be as forthright with you about the payment and the terms and things like that as the credit union would be. We don't have the benefit of selling a vehicle. We just want to do right by the member. So if you do go to the dealership, and you're sitting there with the finance manager, and they usually have these suits on, and they're usually men, and they're very powerful looking. Let's be honest. They walk around those dealerships, they're very powerful looking, and they look like they know more than you. Don't let them have that opportunity. When you're sitting with them and they want you to sign documents, you make sure you know what you're signing. Because I'm telling you, I have seen so many times members have come in and said, I had no idea I was signing, and they do this DocuSign, this electronic signing now, where you might sign your name once and next thing you know, it's been added to all these fields. Do not be afraid to tell the dealer, I want to see the contract. I want to know what the amount financed is. I want to know what my interest rate is. I want to know the total amount of finance charges or how much this loan is going to cost me in the long run. I want to know about the payment, the number of payments, the term, which when we say term, we mean the amount of months that you're paying on this loan. And I want to know if there's penalties involved, which I will tell you, if you hear the word prepayment penalties, which means if you pay your loan off ahead of time, there are some lenders, believe it or not, Suncoast is not one of them, but there are some lenders where if you pay your loan off, let's say you have a vehicle loan that's 6 years and you want to pay it off, you're done paying it in 5 years, you could actually pay fees for paying it off ahead of time. So ask questions like that. Is there going to be any penalties if I pay my loan off sooner? And I will tell you, Suncoast does not have prepayment penalties. So we would never charge you a fee just for paying off your loan ahead of time. But definitely, if you don't know, if you just feel like you're signing something and you haven't really seen anything, you tell them, like, you print out those documents and I want to see what I'm signing. I'm telling you, they have to, first of all. Don't let them bully you. So there is lots of different ways that you can get your financing. We've talked about that. Like I said, you could go directly to the dealership and they could submit your application to a lender. Now, if you go to a dealership and you say, all right, I want to buy this vehicle and I'm going to let you submit my application for me, Mr. Dealer, but you are only allowed to send it to Suncoast Credit Union. I want to tell you that just because you tell the dealer that you only want to get your application submitted to the Suncoast or Bank of America or whoever it is that you want to go through, that does not necessarily mean they have to do that. The credit application and even the law contract that you sign at the dealership, they can click, we call it clicking. They put together a credit app and then they just send it out. They can send it out to however many they want to. However many lenders they want to. And every one of those clicks is a ding on your credit. Ding, ding, ding. I mean, you can look and see inquiries on your credit report after you've gone to a dealership, and you might see multiple inquiries. So yes, they might just submit it to Suncoast, but just be leery, because just because you ask them to, they're not obligated to just send it to Suncoast. So that's sort of just to be careful about that. I don't want to completely say don't go to the dealership. Obviously, there's some advantages to going to the dealership. They might have promotional interest rates. Something in our world, if a dealer submits the application to Suncoast from the dealer, right, indirectly, like what I do, if the dealer actually pulls a higher credit score than what we pulled, believe it or not, there's multiple versions of that FICO score we talked about. Multiple. It's not just one score. If the dealer can actually prove that they pulled a higher credit score than what we pulled, the credit union will honor that score and give you the lower interest rate. So it is possible if you go to a dealership and a dealer says, well, we might be able to get you a better interest rate than if you had gone directly to Suncoast. They're not necessarily, they're telling the truth. It's possible. Now we have the same, it's not that our rates are different. It's the same. Our rates are the same whether you went directly or indirectly, but if they pull a higher credit score, they might be able to put you in a higher tier, which then would give you a better credit score. So it's possible. Obviously, if you go to the credit union, I mean, I'm a big promoter of going directly to Suncoast, even though I am the indirect manager, simply because I want to feel like I have all the power when I go to the dealership. And if you get pre-approved before you go into a dealership, then you have the opportunity. It's easier for you to walk out of the dealership if things are not going the way you want them to. Once the dealer has gotten your social security number, and they've submitted that credit application for you, you begin to feel like you're losing control. You feel like more obligated to stay there and finish the transaction because now they've already dinged your credit. Whereas if you went directly to Suncoast ahead of time, first of all, the credit union might be able to help you determine how much vehicle you can even afford. Because you could say to the person that's either at the branch or in MCC, when I worked at the branch, if a member came in and they needed to buy a car and they really didn't know how much they could afford, I would ask them like, well, what's your payment? And then we would use those great calculators and find out, okay, based on what you want to pay each month, this is how much you can afford. And that way you're more likely to stay on budget when you go to the dealership with that draft. And your credit will have been hit one time through the credit union rather than going to the dealership and maybe they've click, to all these lenders. So, because think about it, once you go to the dealership, if you've gone to the dealership and you don't have your draft in hand, right, you're not pre-approved, you're at the beginning stages of this whole thing, you might fall in love with a vehicle that unfortunately is outside of your budget. And next thing you know, you're signing documents and you've purchased this vehicle and here comes the first payment and oh my goodness, buyer's remorse. I can't afford this. So the dealership is very convenient. You don't necessarily have to wait for Suncoast, so to speak, and just go right to the dealership. There's definitely the convenience factor there. And, they're open when we're not, right? The dealerships are open till 10 o'clock at night. Whereas with going directly to the Suncoast to get pre-approved, there's a little more thought that's behind that. You're sort of putting a seatbelt on yourself before you get to the dealership. But like I said, you also have the opportunity, if you do go into the dealership, you've got that pre-approval in your hand and the dealer is like trying to push you into something, you could say, you know what, man, I'm walking. I'm going to take my pre-approval somewhere else. You have the more power, I feel like, if you go and get pre-approved ahead of time. And our pre-approvals are good for 60 days. So you have 60 days to go shopping. It can be more of a methodical, thought out process than, just going all gung ho at one dealership. You can shop around a little bit better that way. Sometimes folks end up going through a finance company. So you see on the screen here, it says subprime loan. So, there have been instances where maybe you can't get approved when you're at the dealership. Maybe you can't get approved at the credit union because some things have really happened on your credit report that, you want to make amends with, but maybe it takes time and gosh, I need a vehicle now. Well, be careful because there are companies out there that will approve you no matter what. You've heard the financing company Santander. They'll approve just about anybody, or even Capital One. Just be careful because they might, yes, approve just about anyone, but the interest rate is going to probably be in the very high percent, like 18%, 20 something percent. And oh my goodness, once you get into an interest rate that's that high, it's going to be very difficult to get out of because you will be getting yourselves underwater. So I would be very careful to, if at all possible, stay away from these financing companies. So have you ever seen on these commercials 0% financing? I mean, it's shocking, right? You see this with these dealership commercials, like how can they do that? Well, it is a real thing. However, it's definitely something you want to be a little bit leery of. My grandfather always used to say, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Well, he's not wrong. So a lot of these 0% financing, if you qualify for it at the dealership, I would, again, ask a lot of questions. Typically when you're doing that, you're going to be forfeiting possibly some rebates that might have come if you're buying a brand new vehicle. One thing I definitely have noticed with these 0% financing options is, yeah, it's 0% financing, but they only let you hang on to the loan for like 3 to 4 years, which means that your monthly payment is going to be very high. So although that sounds great, you're not paying any finance charges for this loan. You're going to have to pay it off very quickly. And if you don't, there's probably going to be some serious interest hikes. Any of these, we call them the same as cash deals. They're always great. We got flooring recently and it was like 3 years, same as cash. That's great, but you better get paid off within 3 years because if you don't, that interest rate's going to kick in. It's going to be high and they're going to retroact it right from the very beginning of the term. So lots of questions with that 0% financing. Make sure you understand all the fine print before you accept any of it. And yes, it's usually only available to people with that 850 credit score. A lot of times I see these 0% financing for very expensive vehicles too. I don't know why that is, but high stellar credit, very expensive vehicles. And so maybe that's why. Maybe they can afford to make a huge bloated car payment for 3 years. Let's see. Getting the best price. So some great advice for going into that dealership. Number one, don't give them too much information. Like hold your cards to your chest. You know that old saying when you're playing poker or whatever, just don't show them your cards. If you've gotten pre-approved at your bank or your credit union and you've got that draft, don't be flashing it around. You know, I usually keep it in my purse. I never tell them how much I was approved for. They don't need to know that. If typically what I'll do is I'll be walking around the lot, I'll find something I'm interested in. Maybe I'm ready to finally talk about purchasing it. Usually the salesman will say, do you need any help with financing? And I'll always say, no, thank you. I've came pre-approved. I know what I'm going to do. Oh, okay. Well, how much what are you working around? You don't need to know that. They don't need to know how much I was approved for until we sit down. And by then I've already figured out I have enough to make the purchase, right? But if you tell them that I was approved for $40,000, they're going to make sure you're leaving that lot spending that entire amount. So they don't need to know about all of that. All you have to tell them is, don't worry, I came pre-approved. This is a great one. Avoid being overly enthusiastic. Yeah, if you show any like sign that you're excited about something, they are going to use that against you. I mean, it sounds terrible, but you have to go in almost being like just smarter than the dealer. And by the way, that's not that difficult. I mean, really, you just got to go in there just very stoic, you know. You don't sound super excited. If you are, just keep it to yourself. You know, you'll enjoy that vehicle when it's time to drive off. Doing your homework, you know, a big thing is like if you've got a make model that you're kind of interested in, it's not a bad, read some forums, you know, go on read what people are talking about these vehicles. If they're having any issues with maybe some recalls, some safety concerns, read what other people are saying about a vehicle that you're interested in. You know, you don't want to go into the dealership just completely lost on the decision altogether, or you don't even know where to begin. You just, because you're going to get overwhelmed and frazzled very quickly, because it's a lot of choices, it's a lot of options, and it's not a place that you're not there every day like these guys and girls are. So, you know, you want to make sure that you are collected when you get there. And like I said, if you go to the dealership pre-approved, then you have the option to search around better. You know, you can maybe go on some test drives and then leave and think about it. Maybe go to another dealership and do some test drives. You don't owe these people anything because you test drive their vehicle. Remember that. You don't owe them anything. Just test driving it. You know, they're going to make you feel like you got to make a decision now. And I tell you what, as soon as a dealer starts making me feel like I'm being backed into a corner, I'm out. That's it. You have all the power to walk. Let's see. Go at the right time. Yeah, go at the right time when you're mentally ready to make that decision too. You know, if you've got a day where you've got a lot going on, you're feeling stressed out, maybe you have a lot going on that particular week, probably not the best time to be making a huge decision. I mean, buying a vehicle really is, next to your house, your home, the biggest decision financially that you're going to make. So always, you know, don't let that salesperson talk you into something that you don't want. You know, don't let them make you feel pressured into making a decision or like you owe them something. And I tell you what, this last item here, don't let salespeople talk you into extras you don't need. They're going to do it. In our world, I can tell you right now that dealers make their money off of the not so much the vehicle that they've sold you, but the products they want to add onto that purchase. So once you get behind the desk, that vehicle that when you were outside walking around with the sales guy, he thought that the world of that vehicle, he thought there was no better vehicle in the world. Once you get behind the desk, all of a sudden he's lost all integrity in the vehicle. And he's going to tell you you're going to need maintenance, mechanical repair, tire and wheel, both cosmetic and non-cosmetic. He's going to tell you need dent, and he's going to tell you need gap insurance. I mean, I'm not saying not buy these products, but look first of all how expensive these products are, because they can add on to your vehicle loan anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 onto your purchase. So be leery about the products that they say that you absolutely have to have. If there is one product that I could highly encourage every person to purchase, is going to be gap insurance, guaranteed asset protection. And gap insurance is, if you, God forbid, if you get into an accident with that vehicle, that brand new vehicle you just drove off the lot, or even the used vehicle, whatever, right? Your insurance company, they're going to give you the market assessment, value on the vehicle, right? For the for your loan, to pay off that loan. It doesn't always cover the loan. So gap insurance insures that gap between what the insurance company is giving you for the total loss and what's left on the loan. It will close that gap so that you don't have negative equity that you're rolling into another loan, or you're not paying on a loan on a vehicle that no longer exists. So the gap insurance, it's definitely, it's just a great product. I've never purchased a vehicle loan, without the gap insurance. The other items, they can be helpful. Mechanical repair warranty, all those things. I'm not saying don't get them, but I would definitely say ask specific questions on what it covers. First of all, make sure that you understand what the product is, and also just make sure you even want it, because it really does increase that monthly payment significantly. And once you've signed for it, the dealership does not make it convenient for you to cancel those products. Any questions about products that the dealership wants to sell you?
No questions.
Cool. All right. So on to negotiating a lease. So if you are planning to lease instead of buying, you can still negotiate. The monthly payment is based on the current value of the car minus its value at the end of the lease plus fees. So negotiate the purchase price of the car before telling the salesperson that you are interested in leasing, not buying. The lower the price, the lower that monthly payment is going to be. So you can negotiate, but again, with those leases, I would ask a lot of questions, and I would definitely read the fine print to make sure that you understand all the fees that are associated, that you understand how many miles you can put on the vehicle, how often. I think you even have to bring it in to be inspected. There's just a lot of rules with leases. So selling your old car. So, selling it like as a private seller, you've seen them on the side of the road with the signs and everything. You're probably going to get the most for your used vehicle, when you're selling it. If you sell it as a private seller, it's just there's a lot more work involved, right? You're going to have to work something out with the buyer. The buyer may need to get lending. Like I said, we used to do these individual purchases at the branch all the time, and sometimes I'd have the seller waiting in the lobby while the buyer is getting financing, and then we would exchange. I mean, it's but if you are not in a hurry and you want the most for your old car, it's not a terrible route to go, really, because a lot of us, we end up, what do we do with it? We trade it in when we go to make that next purchase. And Yeah, the dealer will tell you right and left that he's giving you the most for your trade, but I think we all know that there's more than likely he's not. So, it's convenient, to trade it in at the dealership. And a lot of times too, it really helps with the kind of bringing that price of that new vehicle down, kind of puts you in a better loan to value ratio on that next loan if you trade it in. But you're going to have to take the dealer, although I will say one thing, when I trade my vehicle in, as an aside note, the dealer more than likely is looking at the black book value. We hear a lot about what's the blue book. It's not the blue book that the dealer is looking at the black book value. So if you're going into the dealership and ahead of time, I'm going to trade my vehicle in, you don't have a loan against this vehicle any longer, right? Or even if you do, if you're trading in your vehicle in general and there is a loan left, make sure that the dealer's given you something that's hopefully going to at least be enough to pay off that previous loan, or just a really good down payment. So if you pull the black book VIN value, you can have it printed out, and it's available to you online. And that way you kind of have an idea in your head when he says he's going to give you such and such amount for your trade. You would know based off of like whether or not it was a rough trade in, a clean trade in, whether he's being fair, basically. So you can do some research, some homework before you go into the dealership. That way, if he's saying, yeah, I'll give you such and such, you could be like, how about you give me this? Negotiate it with him, right? He wants to move the purchase along too. So some legal rights. So especially this first one here, Truth in Lending Act. That's a big one for me, because what I was saying earlier about, especially at the dealership, understanding what you're purchasing, how much this loan is going to cost you, what your payment is, what your term, or how many months is this loan's going to be, your interest rate, all of that falls in line under the Truth in Lending Act. The lender has to, or the dealer has to, make it abundantly clear how much this loan is about to cost you. So if you are at a dealership or even at a bank or credit union and you really don't understand how much this loan is going to cost you, let them know. Like, I am as a consumer, I have the right to know how much this is going to cost me. And so if they're trying to have you sign things and they don't have it printed out in front of you so that you can clearly see it, ask them. Say, can you print this out? Like, I don't mind signing electronically, but I'd like to see what I'm signing, please. Because it's your right as a consumer to know exactly how much you're spending on this credit that's been given to you. The Lemon Law. So I don't know how many of you have heard about the Lemon Law. However, every state has a different. Every state is a little bit different. I believe with Florida, it's 2 years. I'm sorry. No, let me say exactly how they have it. Almost every state has a law designed to protect consumers who purchase a lemon, a car with significant defects. If your car turns out to be a lemon, you may be entitled to a new one or a refund of the purchase price. The law generally only applies to new vehicles, not used ones. The defects must significantly impact the car's safety and or usability, and you must attempt to have the defects fixed a specific number of times. I want to say in Florida, it's like 2 or 3 times before the car can be declared a lemon. If you know the specifics of your state's law, discuss them. I do not personally. I think that this should be very easily located though on the web. If you just like Googled Florida's lemon law, I'm sure you can find out more specifics. But I have actually seen it happen once, though, personally. We had a fellow employee that had bought a brand new vehicle. It was Ford, I want to say, and she had the same issue with the vehicle. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 times. And because she had done her due diligence, making sure she took it in, and there was proof showing that there was clearly issues, she was able to get a brand new vehicle. So, know for sure if you're having issues, but especially the brand new vehicle, make sure that you know what your rights are. And also to the Consumer Leasing Act, again, even in a leasing situation, you should clearly be able to understand what the terms are of this lease. So it should not be hidden from you. So, and finally, we do have this group balance that is partnered with the credit union. And if you want, you can jot this information down if you need it. But they're a great counseling service. They do help those that maybe want to improve their credit worthiness before they get that next loan, or just have a better understanding of money management. So does anyone have any questions from this, something that I've said in the past? Anything on your mind that maybe you just had questions that pertain just to credit in general? Any of that you can add in the chat and I'd be happy to answer them for you. I'm also going to, real quick, I wanted to give you this link if anyone's interested. These are great. I'm going to add this to the chat. That's the calculators that is right at Suncoast Credit Union's website. There's a whole slew of them, but there's a car payment calculator, loan payment, even something with our debt consolidation. Super helpful.
Okay, I put it in the chat. I put it in the chat for you.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I love those calculators. They're super helpful. I mean, at this point in the game, I know what I want to purchase when I go in, but there was a time I had no idea how much I could purchase based off of the car payment I wanted to stay in. So those calculators were a huge help to me in my past.
Well, everyone is saying that was such great information, and thank you so much, so much for it was really helpful. And I used some of the strategies that you gave and I didn't. And so I'm kicking myself that I should have taken this session prior to me
I know I
purchasing
can
my
get
car.
very passionate about that.
You are
when you
so
go into
passionate.
the dealership, don't let them push
Just
you
go.
around, because I have these conversations with people, you guys, and it just breaks my heart when I'm like, man, how dare the dealership make you feel like you had to do something when you don't, I don't know. Especially if you guys get pre-approved, I'm telling you, y'all have all the power in the world when you go into these stores.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So much for all you've done. and families, we put our YouTube channel. This session has been recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe and you will get a notification, and you can share the link with your family, your friends. You can go over it with your 16-year-old son and say, look, son, here's what I was suggested. So make sure that you all like and subscribe and use the tools that Danielle has put, or I think I copied and put it in the chat. So
I would love to go with every one of you when you buy a car, by the way.
Can you apply to Suncoast? Can you apply for a loan with Suncoast if you're not a member?
Oh yeah, you sure can. So you can call 800-999-5887 and actually apply for a vehicle loan, a pre-approval, and that you don't necessarily have to be a member prior to applying for a loan, but you can go to the website, just suncoastcreditunion.com, or even download the mobile app and you can become a member. You guys, like that, they make it so easy. And then once you get in there, it's a real quick process to apply for a vehicle loan. So when you ask for your pre-approval, make sure that you think about how much you might need, and bump it up a little bit. So if you're thinking I only need 20,000, maybe ask for 25, because you just never know when in there. You just want that little bit of wiggle room. So
awesome. Thank you for that. All right, with that, everyone, we want to thank Danielle for her time, her expertise, and her guidance. You all go drive away happy now. All right, thank you all and have a great evening. Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.